And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 112. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That is Conor Ryan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing swell. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thursday was a big announcement day for me. Announced my job, next editor of New England Hockey Journal. Fun stuff. Thank you, Conor. Thank you. Very fun. Very fun. Pat myself on the back, I guess. But the best part, I think, for all the listeners, I think this is what main people cared about. I will continue doing Poke the Bear and Bruins beat. So that never dies. That will never die.
I was expecting the Jordan Belfort, like DiCaprio, like the I'm not leaving. I was waiting for that video. Yeah, but that was going to be the case. But yes, Evan, congratulations on your new job. More than well deserved. You've done a fantastic job grinding away, being a key voice on the Bruins and the New England hockey beat. And I speak for, I think, many people. We're extremely proud of you. We know you're going to crush it. So we salute you.
I appreciate it. A lot owed to you. You've been terrific to me through the years. I know you don't want to hear it, but it is very true. And I must say it. But yes, thank you. It's been fun. I've actually been sitting on you. I told you about it like the second it happened, but that was also like 3 weeks ago now. So like I've been sitting on it for quite a long time. I think it was Andrew Taverna who tweeted my profile and was like, what do the eyeballs mean? And I was like, I can't tell you. There was a podcast I was on. I think it was called The Clown Show. That's when you know you've made it.
Yes.
Like you've reached the peak. I was on with them on Monday and they were like, how do we introduce you? I said, you'll hear this week. I can't tell you the job yet. So, but very excited. But yes, as I said, Poke the Bear and Bruins beat will continue forward. I wish I did. Now that you went to the Jordan Belfort thing, I wish I did have a little bit better of an announcement for that. But I wanted to keep the focus on the editor job. So I'll keep that there.
The people are happy, Evan. That's all that matters. As someone who unfortunately puts way too much content through the Twitter sphere, everything doesn't have to be a meme or a video. You got the message across, and that's all that matters.
It's true, but we love Twitter. We do love Twitter. Petrov McGuire DM'd me on the side and said, hell of a day to announce something. And I said,
yes, that is also true. It kind of buried it a little bit. Oh, geez, that doesn't even fit in well.
Zing! We are on one today. We are on our game.
Thank God the off-season's over, Evan. I'm so sick of this.
That is all time right there. That is all time. So we might as well get into actual Bruins stuff. Yes, it's right up there. Yes, we love you, Queen. Anyways,
there goes the fan banner captain.
Yeah, there goes. She can't even live long enough to see Krejci and Bergeron's reunion. I mean, this is so sad.
They'll do a tribute if they win the cup. They'll have a thing for her.
God save the Queen. Okay, so training camp is right around the corner, and even better for Bruins fans, captain's practices begin on the 12th. So that's Monday. So it's the 12th, the 13th, 16th, 19th at Warrior. I believe they're open, so you can go and watch if you'd like to. It's Warrior, open, no big deal. But so that's just captain's practice, right? It's hard to put a lot of stock into captain's practice. We want to look a little bit ahead to to training camp, which has yet to be announced. Make sure I want to make sure I have that right.
Not the official schedule yet.
Yeah, no official schedule yet. But so we're going to do our two things we're looking forward to, or we're looking for in training camp. And I will let you go first. What's the first of the two things for you that you're really keeping a keen eye on?
Yeah, I think when you look at it, the one thing that probably stands out to me is like the fourth line competition, just because there's so many guys in place there and you got so many players who don't really have like a set in stone assignment just yet. Like you've got the veterans like Foligno and Nosek who already pencil them in probably because they're veterans, but as much as it seems like the Bruins want to see what a guy like Foligno has, how much he has left in the tank, if he's still like ineffective during preseason games, or you still can't kind of put it all together, and you look at a guy like Oscar Steen or Mark McLaughlin, who popped it various times last year. You look at a guy like John Beecher, who maybe is a little bit on the outside looking in, but if he has a strong preseason and he really adjusts to the pro game, could he make a push in the middle of the fall? There's just so many other like variables in place that, for as much as you look at guys like Foligno and Nosek as maybe the leaders in the clubhouse in terms of having those set roles once the calendar turns to October. I think a lot can change between now and then. I think you're going to see a lot of different preseason games, a lot of different line combinations. You're going to see those players, even guys like Trent Frederick, probably get a lot of reps to see if they can kind of showcase their skills. And if guys like McLaughlin and Steen and those guys pop, like, it's not out of the question, right? The Bruins have to move cap at some point. You imagine it's probably going to be closer to November when guys like Marchand and McAvoy come back. But if these younger players are really look like they can play every single day and they warrant a legitimate starting spot once the season starts, why not give them a look? So I think that fourth line, just how it pans out, is going to be really fascinating to see how the pieces kind of fall into place with so many players kind of in the mix for only so many set roles.
Yeah, as you were talking, I wrote down 7 players off the top of my head who are vying for fourth line spots. Because again, as we said, right now, when fully healthy, the third line should be, if Craig Smith is not dealt away, it's Zacha, Coyle, Smith, right? And so then that leaves, okay, that's a great problem to have, I guess, that you have a lot of guys vying for the fourth line, but you do need to define fourth line at some point. And as you said, McLaughlin, Nosek, Foligno, Frederick, Steen, Beecher, and Chris Wagner.
Yes, and AJ Greer.
AJ Greer as well.
One-year deal. Like, they've got a lot of guys in place.
You got a lot of guys down there who you could potentially play. And again, I mean, I personally, I think you said this, Beecher, I could see him as a fourth line guy this year, like at some point getting into the lineup. And again, Steen's been kind of waiting to break through. And as we've said multiple times this summer, one of the reasons Montgomery was brought in, play the kids a little bit more. And we forgot someone else. We did forget a name in that group. Jack Studnicka.
Yes.
Another one.
But again, that's kind of its own topic in terms of where exactly he even fits in this lineup. But yeah, it's going to be a pivotal stretch for him too. Because again, you look at his skill set, doesn't really seem like a legit fourth line checking, grinded out guy. But if that's the only path he kind of has, which is kind of what it looks like, then he's got to do what he has to do to try to make this lineup. So yeah, there's so many individual players worth following for what is essentially 3 open spots on that fourth line.
And by the way, it's not solidified after camp. There's a 100% chance that it changes many times throughout the year, as it always does around the league. So again, I think the fourth line you see on opening night is not going to be the fourth line that you see in game 46 and game 82 and in the playoffs. Like that is not going to be the case. But again, I mean, Studnicka as well, like, and that's not even one of the topics that we have. Like, it's not one of the 4 storylines, but even him, like, there's no reason to think you wouldn't trade him. He has no trade value. So you do have to see what you're going to get out of a guy like him. And again, I don't think the fourth line's the right spot for him. Ideally, in a perfect world, a guy like Studnicka with like real value would be traded to a team like, I don't know, Arizona or Chicago for, I don't know, maybe a player or a prospect or a pick, just something. And then there he would get top 6 minutes and get to actually flourish, or, this is really kind of his last chance, but I don't think that's going to happen. I will stay with the forwards. Young forwards, and say my thing I'm watching is Fabian Lysell. Fabian Lysell is going to be an interesting one. And we've talked about this a lot throughout the offseason. But again, like, a lot's been made of it. We saw him in World Juniors. He looked really good. I think patience is the key here. But if Jake DeBrusk starts to falter a little bit, I think it's pretty obvious that I don't think Lysell is a favorite. I don't think he's going to start out on the top 6 to begin camp. But if he's pushing through and DeBrusk isn't looking great, or Zacha's not fitting, or one of those pieces isn't, fitting with Bergeron, and Lysell's looking good, I think the questions are going to start coming of, is Fabian Lysell going to start the season on the top 6? Now, again, I think we both agree that he should be in Providence to begin the year at least. I think we will see him up at the NHL level this year, but also there's no rush. What is the rush? There's no rush for that. And I don't think he should go back to juniors either. I think now is the time you jump to Providence. But again, I see him as someone who, again, starts the year in Providence. But as we've said, who knows? I mean, do you think there's a chance? I think there's like a tiny chance.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely, I wouldn't even say like a tiny chance. I would say 17%. There's a 17% chance.
17.5%.
That he gets a defined starting role in the NHL roster. And I just think it's the more rational safe measure you take is, again, if you go send him down to Providence, he's still elevating his play because he's going from juniors to the AHL level, goes down there and lights it up for a month or two. It's the same kind of trajectory as Pastrnak, right? Because Pastrnak had a few months down in Providence before he got called up. So I don't think there's any rush here. And again, if we go into the preseason and Lysell, even though he clearly needs to, put on some weight and some of the stuff that all young players have to deal with, if he's lighting up the box score every night, okay, there's only so much you can do, right? Like, I think the Bruins are going into this, and if Lysell's going to wow you and really kind of make a compelling case, all right, then maybe you have to change your game plan a little bit. Does that mean, all right, the Bruins don't want to really move a guy like Craig Smith, which I think we both agree with, better to kind of keep him in place. But if you're still trying to move that cap room and you've got Lysell, who looks like he belongs and he's way ahead of schedule, then maybe you change your thinking a little bit, right? So I think for the Bruins, it's all about, all right, we are going to give a guy like Lysell every opportunity to force our hand in terms of, augmenting what we want kind of our game plan to be. Because listen, from the franchise perspective, it is a fantastic problem to have if your 19-year-old top prospect is lighting it up in the preseason. Again, even if he does that, doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to translate that into the regular season, right? Like, how many times have we seen previous preseasons where Jack Stanika looks pretty good, or like Jakub Lauko looks good, yes, and then it kind of falls apart a little bit there. So even then, like, I feel like it wouldn't be something as reactionary as, let's say, Lysell has a hat trick against the Flyers in a sleepy Saturday preseason game, and they're going to trade Craig Smith because of it. But it does at least, I think, put people maybe more on watch if Lysell has a strong preseason and maybe changes their long-term thinking in terms of, all right, like, Lysell, we'll send you down to Providence for a month, but you're part of the plan potentially as soon as this year.
A hat trick for Lysell on a sleepy preseason game against the Flyers would just be so good for Twitter. Because those preseason games can sometimes get a little, people are not as engaged as maybe they would normally be in a regular season game. I can't blame them. And it's like, ooh, that would just really spice things up a bit. But no, I mean, I agree with you. Again, like, what's wrong with playing a little bit safe? And you have your top six is pretty much full. It's not like you're like dying for a right shot or for a right wing in your top six right now. You're not. Anyways, what is your second thing you're looking for in training camp?
Yeah, I think one area that's kind of been not really examined all that much. We know that the Bruins defense is going to be shorthanded to Stathia with McAvoy and Grizzly being out, but I think kind of that next wave of defensemen who are going to be potentially pressed into roles is going to be interesting to see who kind of emerges from that pile and potentially pushes those guys further down on the starting depth chart. Like, I think going into the year, we expect it's going to be some grouping of Lindholm and Carlo, Forbort and Zaboral, Riley and Clifton, something along those lines. But you also have guys like Conor Carrick, who's been in the league for a while now. You got Kai Wisman, I think is how you say his name, Wiesman, coming over from Germany, who, again, don't really know what you have in a player like that yet and how we adjust to the elevated competition from the German league over here to North America. But you at least have guys in place. And this is something I think we kind of talked about when we kind of shot down the PTO talk with guys like Subban and Yandel. You at least have other guys kind of waiting in the wings. That are they going to be everyday NHL players on this roster? I wouldn't say so, but it wouldn't surprise me if a guy like Conor Carrick potentially pushes a guy like Clifton or Zaboral, who's coming off of ACL surgery. Like, I think that's something that when you look at a defense and the amount of punishment that your decor goes through over the course of the season, you need to have those couple of guys, those, spare pieces in place that can kind of slot in when needed. You kind of look at like a guy like Steven Kampfer, right? Like, would Steven Kampfer be part of the starting lineup most nights? No, but like when he's called into service, he's pretty damn good at what he does, right? So I think finding that next guy with a guy like Carrick or Wisman, or even a guy like Jack Ashan, who's kind of hit that point where you have to kind of figure out, all right, is he a very good AHL player, or is he a serviceable NHL player that can help our team right now and in the years ahead? I think that kind of role is kind of still up in the air, and there's a lot of players kind of in, vying for that spot going into the training camp.
The interesting thing about Ashan is I feel like if he emerges and, does his job and shows, hey, I'm a serviceable NHL defenseman, that could be what ends up making a guy like Mike Riley expendable. Because again, you have the puck mover in Grzelcyk when he comes back. You have Hampus Lindholm. McAvoy can obviously move the puck well. But again, if a guy like Ashan comes up and is good in his spots that they'll need him in, because I guarantee you he's going to get time, right? And let's say he's good. That could be what ends up getting Mike Riley to be expendable. And as we both said, is it worth it to trade a guy like Riley? Like just for, for lack of a better term, shits and giggles?
Yes.
No, it's not. But if you have to clear space and you know for a fact you have guys in the system who can do his job for cheaper, then it's different, right? So you're right. That was something that we talked about a lot at the trade deadline. Because we were like, or not the trade deadline, free agency. Because we were like, no one's really talking about this, but they really don't have a lot of depth on the right side, and they still really don't. But Conor Carrick helps a little bit. So again, that's another interesting guy to watch. As a seventh defenseman. That Camper analogy was good. Remember when he came in against the Hurricanes, scored like immediately,
and murdered a man.
Yes.
Murdered a man off the glass. Yes.
Yes. How could we forget that poor guy? The oral history of that play would be quite something from that guy's perspective. My second and final thing is Pavel Zacha with Patrice Bergeron. I find this interesting because, and maybe you could put that whole line together, right? Zacha, Bergeron, DeBrusk, because you have Patrice Bergeron in the middle, who is as consistent as there is in the NHL, a guy who what you're getting every year, elite, amazing two-way guy, basically like should have the Selke trophy named after him, all that stuff. But now as right and left, you have two of the more inconsistent yet incredibly high ceiling players in the league, right? Like Jake DeBrusk is a goal scorer and should be scoring a lot more than he is. And we saw it in the second half last year, what he's capable of. And Pavel Zacha, big guy, great shot, gets to the net well, like high draft, high first round pick. Two guys who should be doing a lot more than they have been. And they're flanking Bergeron to start the year. And I think that's going to be interesting. That's going to be something interesting because, again, how does Zacha fit with Bergeron? How does he fit with DeBrusk? Was the second half of DeBrusk last year a flash in the pan? Now, I don't think that'll be the case. I think DeBrusk is on track. I think he's got he has a new head coach, new contract extension, all those things. But Zacha is an interesting one, just given going to be playing with Bergeron, a real chance there for him to up his production. And then most likely he goes down to the third line and plays with Charlie Coyle. So, but again, those things I'm watching for, because if they don't click, then you do have a situation on your hands where you say, okay, do we move Taylor Hall up to play with Patrice Bergeron? Does David Pastrnak go up to play with Patrice Bergeron? Do we just jam the first line and then kind of leave David Krejci hanging, so to speak, which is unfortunate for him. But again, I don't think that'll happen, but I think it's something to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think with Zacha, it's going to be fascinating to see how he fits in that short-term kind of plan they have on that top line. I think you already said it earlier in the podcast, Evan, that I think in a best case scenario, Zacha eventually settles in on that third line with Coyle and Smith most likely. But what better way to kind of start your tenure and for the Bruins, who signed him to a 1-year deal, see what you kind of have in Zacha in terms of his upside by giving him reps with the best two-way forward in league history, right? A guy who's still playing at a high level. So it's going to be great, fascinating to see how he meshes with those players. I think the whole knock on Zacha, it's something when you write about the fact that, all right, is Zacha due for a breakout year? Is he due for a 45, 50-point season? All the replies are usually just rogue Devils fans who are like, just watch and see what happens. So I think just get more tape on Zacha, how he plays. He's got a great chart that he doesn't use all that much. So if he kind of focuses more on that, I think just seeing how he fits in the system is going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out, because he is a guy that, again, is he going to just break out and be a 25 goal, 50-point guy? I don't think so. But if he can be a dependable middle six guy, good in transition, defensively responsible, and give you 40-ish points, it's kind of the same as Craig Smith. Like, you will take that for what the role is for where he fits on this team, where he's not a featured piece, right? If he's just part of the bigger puzzle and puts together a winning roster, then you'll be happy with it.
Take it every time. Anyways, Conor, what can people look forward to from you over at Boston Sports Journal?
Yes, well, we will be over at Warrior once again. I will be back at it. I'll be sending off the tweets over at Warrior starting on
Monday. I can't wait to see the tweets, the back at it.
We will have all of the regular coverage from captain's practice, from the start of training camp, all that good stuff will be over at BSJ. So please subscribe at bostonsportsjournal.com. Want to follow me on Twitter? You can do that at ConorRyan_93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your day.